If I were to look at, me and my relation with these pieces of history, that was the first, or perhaps one of the very first encounters that I had with deep fear of Romanians, a fear which was not only a fear of bias or discrimination, but was also a fear of physical violence. One summer, I remember how Romanians in our own village started to organize against Roma, and my father and other leaders managed to stop everything in due time. But I remember fearing, first of all, for my father, and second of all, having this fear that Romanians would burn Roma houses. Romani Greece counted up to about 40 villages and towns where Roma were collectively blamed and their houses were burned or destroyed, and Roma people were killed and seriously injured. In spite of our hopes, in December 1989, Roma did not gain freedom from racism. A lingering system which started in the 1300s, when the racial enslavement of Roma began, and has evolved and became more sophisticated today. Starting in the 1370s or perhaps earlier, the Roma people were enslaved for 500 years in the principalities of Moldova and Wallachia, territories of what we know today as modern, as Romania. In these territories, different from other types of enslavement and other systems of enslavement, Roma dealt with three types of enslavers: the crown, what was later the state, the church, and then the nobility. This inhumane form of exploitation brought to Romania, its church and elites, a lot of wealth. And I want to make it very clear, we are talking about chattel racial enslavement. By law, Romanian enslavers were allowed to treat and to punish the enslaved Roma as they wanted. Indeed, the abolition didn't come overnight. After the final act of abolition in February 1856, about 250,000 Roma, and some scholars would say that many more, became legally free. But freedom didn't come with property, freedom didn't come with compensations. So slavery didn't really end back then. If we were to look at the legacy of slavery, I think that enslavement really stripped Roma people of any prospect of accumulating intergenerational wealth. It's important not to forget that during Roma enslavement, Roma dealt with 5 centuries of trauma and abuse. We are talking about rape, violence, family separation, physical and economic exploitation. We can't ignore these 500 years in understanding structural inequalities today, starting from high child mortality rates to access to education, housing, access to property. The most concrete and immediate step that needs to happen is to re-establish the National Commission to study the legacy of enslavement. And finally, the simple phrase "we are sorry" has a lot of moral and political power. But representatives of the Romanian state and the Orthodox Church are yet to apologize for the enslavement to Roma. So we need apologies, we need compensations, we need memorialization, we need truth-telling, and all this can be achieved by starting with a national commission to study the legacy of enslavement.